Finally, NBA basketball is here. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast, a sports ethos presentation. And welcome to our viewers on Twitter and on YouTube. And if you're on Twitter, head on over to YouTube if you want to get some questions answered. We'll be taking questions from listeners in today's show. We got a lot to cover here, folks. We had some great NBA basketball last night, at least in one of the games. Tonight we have 10, count them, 10 NBA games to wet your whistle with. And all those drafts, all those hours studied. I know I can't wait. So we're going to cover all of that action. Some real quick schedule notes so you guys know what's going on here at Sports Ethos. This show is going to be running 7 times per week. Early mornings Pacific time, right around this time. And then on Mondays in the afternoon, we'll have a special episode with Rick Campbell to help everybody with weekly lineup decisions. And then Doc and Rick are going live. Sports Ethos After Dark. Wednesday nights after the games. I heard a chuckle there, Steve. And I can't wait to hear what Steve has to say about yesterday's games. We'll go over his text messages to me that I have yet to answer. But before we do all of that, let's shout out our sponsor, BetOnline. Has you covered with the best odds, promos, and live in-game betting on all of your teams this season. Every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, matchup, breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the games. And not just NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, to political props. Head to the website today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline. The game starts here. Okay. Steve-O, you sent me a text last night. I'm going to review it. It said, Julius Randle, something. So that was a thing. How was watching last night's games for you? I know we want to start with the early game to kind of keep things in order, but just overall, did you have fun last night?
Yeah, I may have taken a little nap in the middle of the early one, but overall,
as did America.
Overall, I'd give it a B plus.
I really, we want to kind of get right into the action here. I didn't think the Bronny stuff would hit me as much as it did. When I was watching that stuff, I was like, damn, that's pretty cool. And that game I liked a lot. I liked that game a lot for a lot of different reasons. The Knicks game, that one hurt my soul, man. I think like all however many weeks of talking about the trade and just, I'm not down with the trade. I think both teams lost in that trade. They ripped away my lifelong fandom for the New York Knicks. They took one of my favorite players off the Knicks and brought a player that I don't believe in a whole lot, and Karl Anthony Towns and the other players, Dante DiVincenzo. And it all played out like you thought it might. Yes, it's the Boston Celtics. Yes, they're, the champions, and they're a very tough team. And if they're at home on opening night and they're just going to shoot all those threes and make all those threes, you're done, right? But New York, ooh, man. I ask you off the top, how cooked is New York? Is this just one game, one of 82, as somebody said to me on Twitter, or do you think this is really, really bad for them, or something in between?
It's the first game of the season, dude. I think everybody just needs to calm down. We're one game in. It's going to take them some time to learn how to play together. I'm not really concerned, honestly.
Well, let's do some concernometer here. Mikal Bridges, how concerned are you after a 16-point, 0 rebound, 2 assist game with no defensive stats, 7 of 13, and that becomes important, and 2 of 7 from 3. That becomes important because the whole world seems to be focused on his shooting form now. Where are you with Mikal Bridges? Is this something that you think is a really big deal, or in a time for folks to buy low, or do you think that it's something else?
I don't know that he's a buy low. I tell you what, I'm glad he hit 7 of 13 shots and not 4 of 13, or this would be a whole different discussion. The shot didn't look as broken to me last night as it did in some of that other footage we saw, but the lack of stats is a little concerning. But let's keep in mind that, the Knicks were down by like 40 at one point in this game, so it was kind of a blowout from the beginning, from the time they raised the banner. But I'm not freaking out about Towns. I'm not freaking out about Bridges. Jalen Brunson's line is pretty much hot garbage. I mean, if you want to get into it, 22 points, but only 2 assists, 1 rebound, and nothing else. I mean, Celtics are good, man, and they whooped on the Knicks, but the Knicks are going to win a lot of games this year.
I wonder what your over-under is on that. I think the over-under for that was like 53. That's a big number. Do you think it would be under 50 at this
I'm going to go under that as of today. Now, if you would have asked me that last week, I don't know what I would have said, but I'm going to go under.
I think it's interesting because I think it's one of 82, and of course they were going to be bad, right? Like, I mean, you're just now bringing in Karl-Anthony Towns. You take the heart and soul of your team out. I mean, Donte DiVincenzo, we saw that in the night game. The contrast was there. He's such a great connector. He keeps the trains moving on time, and you don't have that. You're adding Karl-Anthony Towns. OG Anunoby didn't really play for the Knicks that consistently when he was traded to the Knicks last year. So, I mean, it's kind of an all-new basketball squad going up against really just, I think Boston got even better this offseason with some of the guys at the bottom of the roster just getting more experience and the guys at the top of the roster entering deeper into their prime. This was a massacre written all over it, but still, like, are they going to be able to generate offense consistently down chain? I think Brunson will get his. He went 22 points, 2 assists, as you mentioned. No real goodies here, just 1 3-pointer, and that's it. Anunoby, 4 points, 5 boards, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 of 7 shooting, no threes. Concern level there. I've been personally fading him, but like, are you going one? This is 1 of 82, or does like the systemic potential for them to struggle not having their connector in Donte DiVincenzo, does that worry you about him, or are you more into a sort of a buy low posture here?
Again, dude, for me, it's one game of 82. The first game of the year, the Knicks did not look great. The Celtics looked very good. They were on the road. The Knicks were. I tell you what, I was fired up about Deuce McBride. I think he's going to have a big role eating some of that Josh Hart and Donte stuff from last year. I think we're going to have we're going to see a decent amount of Deuce McBride. And I used him in FanDuel last night. I think we talked about him on the show. I was kind of excited about him as a potential streamer. And I think as of right now, I think he's a decent pickup in fantasy. But as far as Anunoby hit 1 of 7 shots, as far as the whole Knicks team, so let's look at this a month from now. And if they suck after a month, then I think it's fine to call it a lost cause. But I'm not going there after one game.
Yeah, that would be wise to do that. And I think there's going to be a ton of overreactions out there. Karl-Anthony Towns, 12 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, 1 3. Just 24 minutes for Towns, and a lot of the blowout going on there. But Towns was going toward the end of draft season, which, by the way, I still have one more draft to go here, but draft season by and large done. Towns went like 6 or 7 in a couple drafts that I was in. Like, people really got on the Karl-Anthony Towns ride, and so if you're out there and you're looking to make a play, maybe you can make a play for Karl-Anthony Towns. It's very kind of dicey. I don't know which GMs out there are going to give up after one game, but stuff happens. Bridges, we got to see how he reacts. I thought it was great that Josh Hart after the game was really forceful in his defense of Bridges. And that's, that's a teammate's going to do that. That's not surprising on its face, but it does. And Hart's a really noisy guy. If you read any of the stuff that's kind of out there in the reporting world of, how Hart handles the locker room, and he's just a character. He's a cut up. And so him being loud and defending his guy is not surprising, but if there was a problem, like a real big problem, I don't know that Hart would kind of go there so aggressively with Bridges. It feels like Bridges made a decision to change his shot. That's, people shoot funny. There's all sorts of people in the league that have shot funny in the past. The big question is, does it go in? And if there was a big kind of mental problem there, if they were really concerned about all of that. I'd be surprised if Hart went there. He might just go there because he's Josh Hart, but usually you'll kind of, simmer down and protect the teammate if they're going through that sort of thing. Otherwise, you could kind of take this box score, crumple it up, and throw it in the circular file. On the Boston Celtics side, not so much going on other than big numbers for Jason Tatum, 37 points, 10 assists, 14 of 18 shooting, 8 threes. Everybody went off. Derek White went off, 24 points, 4 assists, 6 threes. Jaylen Brown, 23 points, 7 boards, 5 threes. Real great box score from the Boston perspective. Sam Hauser is somebody that I've had on the back end of some deeper leagues, and 10 points, 5 boards, 4 threes. I'm not sure that the defensive numbers are coming at all, but I do think that he can get more involved in this team's offense. I think I've mentioned that a couple times here on the show. And other than that, I mean, not too much going with those guys at the back end of the rotation that you kind of have some question marks. Can they do something in the gaps this season when starters are resting? But really a snoozer of a game. And then we got to the nightcap. And again, the Bronny stuff came in, kind of the middle of the, I think that was the back end of the first quarter.
Can I talk about Boston real quick?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Peyton Pritchard was 1 of 10, and he played 25 minutes. Peyton Pritchard's not going to shoot 1 of 9 from downtown very often. If you've got Peyton Pritchard, don't panic. Just hold on. I thought Derek White was amazing. And if you waited till the end of your draft and you drafted Al Horford, who had 3 3-pointers, a steal, and a block, and you drafted Andre Drummond, and you drafted Zach Edey, you're going to be fine at center. I can't wait for Drummond tonight. Anyway, let's go on.
And I didn't really put my stamp on the Mikal question. I think people, especially as like last year, I was sort of resident Mikal guy in the fantasy universe, and took a huge loss. And I'm happy to always report my losses because we'll report my wins. You got to report the losses as well. But like, I don't think this is a buy low moment here. I hesitated to kind of drag him down to the bottom of draft boards just on the basis of an account filming, some shooting. And yeah, that shooting form is indeed a question mark. And probably as this has played out, more so the result of last night's game, I'd be more aggressive dropping him down the ranks. I'm not considering him a buy low because I do wonder, is there a more team-wide malaise that's going to hit as a result of some of the realities of some of the moves they've made starting to set in and some of the pressure of New York starting to get this team to kind of, they'll have a moment probably, if I had to guess, a month and a half from now where they really do kind of come together and things get a lot better for them. But statistically, if you're not out there getting steals, if you're not getting blocks, if you're not being way more versatile than what we saw last night, Mikal Bridges gets ordinary really quick in the stat set. So we got to see a lot more for me to be like out there leading the charge or something like that on Mikal buy low. I'm just not even close to that. I think you just kind of sit and hang. If you have Mikal on your team, just see how this thing simmers out because nobody's buying right now. And I don't think you should be either. Welcome to the listeners on the pod feed as well. I think
Talk to me about Bronny and LeBron. I'm curious.
What did you bet? Did you bet that he would play last night? I was trying to remember.
I said yes, second quarter.
Is that what happened? That was end of first quarter that he came in?
He came in with 4 minutes left in the half.
Yeah. It was ballsy.
I basically killed it. I nailed it.
Yeah, you did. I think I was on the other side of that bet. It was ballsy. I mean, you're JJ Redick, you're the Lakers, they came out to play last night, just kind of to jump to something more specific to the Lakers themselves. They came out to play. I think they wanted to send a message, and maybe that provided the proper shelter to make this kind of a call because flat out, he does not look like he can kind of survive an 82 game schedule as a backup, for 5 to 10 minutes. He's small. He's not going to be a force on offense in really any way. He's defensively, around the edges, like, defense, effort, instincts. I did think that he understood game flow and he understood where to be on the court. He even had a couple really good plays. I thought Bronny competed out there, which was really important. And he didn't make the big shot. And the crowd, it was funny. The crowd, when he didn't make the big shot, I think the crowd, you could hear that sort of groan, like, oh, nepotism. And then after that, they watched him play hard and stand in the right spots. And he made a couple of good plays on the ball, and he was playing. He was a player out there. And they gave him.
He played for 3 minutes and missed both shots.
That's fine.
Should he have been drafted? Should he?
Probably not. No.
Should he be in the NBA? I mean,
the counter argument to that is, do you keep LeBron James happy? And LeBron is what, a third or half of the power source of the NBA world. When you kind of gather up all of the, the stuff that he can do with, one phone call, so to speak, with clutch and, just his standing in the league. But it's that Bronny stuff. I'm the only thing that I really enjoyed about it was like the idea that, you get to see a player in LeBron James, who's got so much history and so much stature in the league. You get to see him have more of a human moment. And I think anybody who's had a kid, you go, oh man, that would be cool. So anyway, that's enough on Bronny. Unless if you got something else, Steve.
No, I mean, cool that LeBron got to play with his son. Glad it's out of the way. And I told you they were going to do it last night because they just wanted to get it out of the way. Now he's going to spend a lot of time in the G League this year. So, but how about the rest of the Lakers, man? They look fantastic, I thought.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on there. Maybe let's start at the top of the draft structure. Like Anthony Davis was the kind of consensus number 5. I didn't have him at 5. I've got concerns about injury. That's just the big, elephant in the room there.
Giannis was consensus 5, I think.
It depends on the format. I think in head-to-head that might have been the case. But even outside of that, I did see a lot of momentum for Anthony Davis out there. I think people were just excited by the opportunity that somebody could possibly reach up with a stat set and kind of compete in the top 4. The top 4 was just its own island this year, more so 1 and 2, but top 4 was definitely its own island, at least in the drafts I was in. Anthony Davis came out. I thought he looked spry. I thought he took advantage of a team that was clearly on the ropes in the Minnesota Timberwolves. More on that side of the line later. But I think if you have Anthony Davis right now, you feel great. And there's not much more to say other than that.
Yeah, he wants to win the Defensive Player of the Year award. He's mad he didn't get it last year. That block that he had on Gobert, and he just went nuts. Like that was fun.
It was good theater, but it was an easy block. Like
the
timing was like just sitting there, just teed up for it. And that's great. He yelled, he took advantage of the moment. He was, it's actually the knock on Davis has always been that he's been soft. And he was out there talking crap, just getting like Anthony Edwards had something to say to him at one point, and he turned and he sunned Anthony Edwards in trash talk land, and Anthony Edwards had to turn and walk away. And that's Anthony Edwards isn't really backing down from too many people, and this is the NBA. They're not really fighting or anything like that. But I just thought that was great. It set the tone. As far as defensively,
Davis looks like somebody who wants to win the MVP.
He has that look about him. He's got to do it for long term. I mean, this is the sharpest he will probably look all season because he's had some rest, and the time of say February, March, how's he sliding his feet when voters are really digging in and trying to vote for those awards? That's what I think.
And so is this a sell high moment on AD? Is this as good as it gets?
It is as good as it gets. If you look at it that way, this is as good as it gets. And if there is a sell high moment, I mean, you could maybe script out something a little tiny bit better where you're aware of an injury and most of the public's not aware of an injury or something like that. But like, this is as good as it gets. If you have any concern about Anthony Davis's injury history, this would be the time to make that move. Other than that, I thought LeBron looked great last night. The stat line, 16 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 1 3. It's not headlining or anything like that. I don't think we're expecting him to headline every night. He looked athletic. He looked focused. He, they ran shop on a Minnesota Timberwolves team. Again, though, keep in mind, this Minnesota Timberwolves team is now currently dealing with the reality that they have Julius Randle on their team and that it's going to be very tough sledding to figure that out. Like, I have an idea for them. Trade the guy. I don't know how possible that is. I'm not the CBA expert around here. Trade the guy and save your season. That is not going to work. It's just not going to work. And we can get into that when we talk about that side of the line. James was good. I think if you've drafted James in the third round, say, you got to feel pretty good that he's going to be upright all season. What were your thoughts on Rui Hachimura, Doc?
He was awesome. Surprisingly so. I'm not sure. I don't know what his ADP was. I don't know how many leagues he's sitting out there on waiver wires in. But he's certainly worth a look after 18 points, 5 boards, 2 steals, a block, and a 3. I mean, it's probably about as good as it gets with Rui Hachimura as well. But he played 35 minutes, and he really put up a better stat line than LeBron did. LeBron kind of came on at the very end of that game, but through 3 quarters, Hachimura and Davis were the story.
What I thought was interesting about Hachimura, I got a couple thoughts here that'll be useful for fantasy GMs. One is that, I'll go to my drafts. Some industry ringers that aren't really media guys, they were fighting over him with like their 15th and 16th round picks. They were trying to snipe each other at the end. Like, the one that was sort of championing Hachimura and the other one that's also a winner in these formats is like, no, I'm going to steal him from you now. I thought that was fun. And then they were running a lot of action for Hachimura that they didn't have to. Like a couple times where if you're Anthony Davis and you're trying to put up numbers and you feel like, hey, this is my team, you take the shot. Davis is like, no, I want to get Hachimura going. And that maybe is a sign of respect inside that team that Hachimura is somebody that they want to create as a like a third, fourth, fifth kind of a scorer there next to D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves. I thought both those guys, even though Russell's stat line was down 9 points, 5 assists, I thought he had a decent game. I thought he fit in real well. Reeves, I thought he had a great game. But Hachimura just felt like they were going to kind of get him his looks. And he got 18 points, 5 boards, 2 steals, 1 block. That plays in most leagues. The problem that I have with Hachimura is that we've seen this before, and that the consistency in the goodie stats and the steals and the blocks and the threes just isn't always there. And if it's not there, I think you might find him to be kind of going in and out of fantasy squads up, off and on the cut. So that's kind of where I'm at with Hachimura. Do you see it any differently, Doc?
No, I think Hachimura is going to be one of those guys where he's going to get picked up a lot after last night, and he's going to have a game or two where it's not so good, and he's going to get cut. Somebody else is going to pick him up. He's just going to bounce around waiver wires all year, I think.
Yep. And Dalton Knecht had 5 points, 2 assists, 1 steal, 1 3. That might cause people to, if they're fading Dalton Knecht, to like celebrate maybe a little bit. They're like, oh yeah, I told you he couldn't do it. I thought he looked great out there. Like, I don't. What did you think about the Knecht? You've been a big Knecht guy.
Yeah, I've got him on most of my teams, especially deeper leagues. You've only played 16 minutes. Like the person announcing the game last night, she was like, they're going to need scoring off the bench, and that's what Dalton Knecht's going to do for them. So it's his first NBA game. I'm cool with waiting and seeing how this goes.
I hadn't really been able to dig in so much on Knecht. I mean, I saw a little bit in summer and I saw a little bit in preseason and, a little bit of his college, but not enough, right? Like there's just never enough time and never enough hours to get as much film as you'd like. This was great film, I thought. I mean, it just is the way he's moving on the court. Some of the attributes, he's got good long arms. Like, I think he could cover space defensively. Offensively, I think he really understands the flow. I thought that just the whole thing looked great for him. I don't know that this is going to manifest in stats soon, but I think if he gets the opportunity, he will definitely do something with it. This is Fantasy NBA Today. You guys are watching on YouTube, Twitter, and via podcast. Thank you guys for joining in. We're going to switch this up and now head into tonight's action. And there's 10 games, so we're not going to be able to break them down the way we would love to if we were on air for 8 hours. And I know, Steve, you would just love to be on air for 8 hours with that voice as you recover from major surgery over there. Let's just keep it to 45, 55 minutes here. We'll go one by one. I want to get one thought from you. And if that happens to become 2 or 3 thoughts, we'll live with it. But Golden State Portland shows up first on my stat sheet here because I used to be Golden
That's
State.
a late game.
It's a late game, but you know what?
Are you going in reverse order?
I'm just, pointing out that as a Warriors fan, I get some discretion on this show, and it just is what it is. And I'm excited.
You just made me scroll like through 7 pages. No, I'm just kidding.
That would be a complaint if you had TOS, sir, but you don't. You only have a sliced up neck.
Sure.
I kid. And, but yeah, no, let's just go to the Warriors first. Warriors at Portland. Talk about a weird matchup. What's one thought as you gear up?
I want to see Kuminga and I want to see Pods. I want to see what they do.
Yeah, I think the Golden State, not even the back end, just like everybody minus Steph and Dre, I guess. Everybody there. I want to watch for fantasy purposes. What is the arrangement there? Because there are a lot of moving pieces, and there are a lot of guys that have pop, low end pop perhaps, but even like Buddy Hield in the past has been able to be a top 40 guy with very little effort, so to speak. So, you got Hield, you got Melton. Hell, even Kyle Anderson's been a fantasy favorite in the past. And you got Jonathan Kuminga going very early in drafts. Is he going to be the number 2 scorer there? Trace Jackson Davis, that's somebody that's been drafted, and people are trying to figure that out. And then Steph was going criminally low in drafts. I thought I saw Steph Curry go in the 3rd round the other day, and then I was like, I don't know, that's probably too many drafts, Brew. Portland side,
you went in 3rd round on one of mine. Yeah,
it's crazy. It's really crazy. Portland, I don't have any interest in the Portland side at all.
I am so excited about Scoot Henderson this year.
Scoot
is going to do some things, and I'm here for it. I want to watch Scoot and Denny. You're not very excited about this weird game. I'm kind of fired up about this.
Okay, I'm fired up now that you remind me. I just have this distaste for what Portland's doing. I have
a lot of Denny and I have a lot of Scoot.
A lot of people want to free Donovan Clingan. That's on the radar. I don't know if they're going to get it. I hope they get it. Steve, I know you hope it.
I don't care.
You don't care? You might have ordered a snow shovel for DeAndre Ayton, but you don't care.
I've got Clingan in Dynasty.
All right.
Maybe one.
We'll hopefully get your scrolling issue fixed here. We'll go back to the East Coast games. We got Indiana and Detroit.
Hey.
Yeah.
You're there.
I do what I can.
Indiana
and Detroit. What's your first thought, Indiana and Detroit?
I want to see Miles Turner versus Jalen Duren, and I want to see Jaden Ivey go off.
Yeah. I don't have Cade Cunningham anywhere, and some of my opponents do. But I'm rooting for him. I want to see Cade Cunningham get out there and have a quick start. I don't know. The injury stuff, it feels like he really hasn't had a chance to show what he's capable of. Jalen Duren, I'm kind of curious to see how I know he's moving well. I put in some crazy bets on Detroit that I'm just now remembering. I guess I'll say them out loud. I took their over in the wins total, thinking, watching them play in the preseason when the teams are actually kind of giving it a good go for the 10, 16 minutes in a game that they actually care. I thought Detroit actually looked pretty good, considering this is a team that's been, on some of the worst losing streaks of all time, if not the worst losing streak of all time. Can't remember if they hit that threshold or not, but everything going on with them, I think they'd be a lot better. So I took the over, and then I took Bernie Bickerstaff to win Coach of the Year. Yeah, it did.
Nice.
Yeah, and I took it for a lot of money, a lot. And so if that happens, guys, we'll have a party. It'll be fun.
Hey, is Tim Hardaway Jr. sneaky? Like, I don't think he got drafted in any league I was in this year.
No, I don't think so.
Is he starting?
So. Yeah, I just think that those veterans will indeed stabilize the team. Stat-wise, I'm not there with Tim Hardaway Jr. I just don't think he's going to do it.
I could just see him having some decent nights that make people go,
Yeah, like some 25-point nights, and it's like, and then maybe even frustrating folks because it's coming at like Jaden Ivey's expense.
Yeah.
Is something that I could see. Though, we did have a lot of experts on the show from Detroit in the off season, and the idea there is that they're probably going to showcase Jaden Ivey. So hopefully we see a lot of Jaden Ivey early. That's something that I'm looking for as well. On the Indy side, I want to see the backup center position. I know Isaiah Jackson has already hit the injury radar, so that's not great, but I want to see if he can nail down that backup job there. What else in Indy? And they got Halliburton on a lot of squads. So I just selfishly want to see.
Indy's favored by 5 points. Do you like that?
No.
I feel like you're sort of on the Detroit bandwagon this year.
I am not in any way that I'd like to publicly admit on this live show here, but I am. Yeah, no, I think Detroit's got a lot that they want to prove. I think Indy is going to be on the road. I think Indy, they could coast a little bit because they had a great, season, so to speak, last year, making it as far as they did in the playoffs. I don't know. I wouldn't bet that probably. I would probably, if I had to, take Detroit though. Brooklyn and Atlanta. What's going on with Atlanta for you? Yeah, we got some dancing going on in the background.
My whole fantasy season is built around two guys. One is Cam Thomas, and the other is Norm Powell.
Ooh, yeah.
That's a lot to ask right there. But I'm so excited to see Cam hopefully be a one-man wrecking crew for the Nets and just go off. And, every time an NBA player had a 50 or 60 or 70 point game last year, guess where it happened? Like at Atlanta. Like they just got destroyed. Soren and I, my son and I, were at that game when Lucas scored like 74 or whatever. And they just got lit up every night. Maybe Dyson Daniels is there to make sure that doesn't happen. But I could see Cam going off tonight. And I'm excited to see the Hawks. I'm trying to get back on the Hawks bandwagon. Trey and Jalen, and I've got a lot of that in fantasy, a lot of that combo. And Dyson Daniels kind of cool off in the preseason, but what's he going to look like tonight? Like I'm excited to see that too.
Yeah, I don't have any real specific kind of players I'm honing in on for either of these teams in this game. I'd actually like to watch the game. I want to see how Brooklyn shakes out. You don't want to watch Clam Johnson?
Clam Johnson
could be fun to watch. It could be a top 50 start for Clam Johnson, and that's going to be interesting because you could kind of play this both ways right now. Like if you're looking at Clam Johnson and you're thinking like, okay, I don't have him and I would like to get him. I don't think his fantasy GM thinks that he's worth a whole lot right now. And he's proven in the past, as long as he's upright and healthy and it's not like too crazy, that's going to be the heavy lifting part of this equation. It is kind of too crazy in Brooklyn. We don't know how bad they're going to be, but he's been a top 50 guy in the past. So he's sort of valued as like a 125 right now, maybe 100 if somebody's sort of overvaluing him in the preseason, so to speak. So I think you could get in early there. And then the converse is if he starts playing at that level, I think you got to jump ship relatively quick there because the end of this season, they're over under 19 and a half wins for Brooklyn. I got the under. I think that they're hunting for Cooper Flag. So that's going to look really tough down the stretch. Who knows, though? If they can be bad enough to both lose and have some of these guys go off. People who went Brooklyn, like yourself, Steve, you guys might be onto something big. So
I have two things. Dennis Schroeder is going to have a good game, and he's going to be a hot pickup tomorrow. And the Hawks are favored by 6.5 at home. Give me the Hawks.
And I don't know the pricing for Dennis Schroeder in DFS. Your guy, Keith Fleming, would probably be the guy to talk to there. But the revenge angle, going back to Atlanta, and him being the steadying force, so to speak, for Brooklyn, I would say, that's going to look probably pretty good at the end of the game. So keep an eye on that one. If you're looking for some streamer action, you're looking for somebody who's under the radar. I didn't see Dennis Schroeder getting drafted that much. Maybe I missed it in the tail ends of drafts, but wasn't on my radar. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to have a good role for this team this season. Orlando and Miami, I am very interested in this one. I got a lot of Jimmy Butler. I think that's the end of the story. No, I don't know. What do you got for Orlando, Miami? Is there any players, angles that are intriguing you, sir? And we got a mute, I believe. Not calling you.
Sorry, man.
You got a mute button issue.
Oh, I said some really good stuff. I was like,
and you can totally reproduce it, right?
I've got some Franz Wagner, so I want him to do well. And you know how I feel about the Heat. I don't care about those chumps. I don't have any of those guys on my team. This game will not be on my television.
Yeah, I feel like we've seen, obviously they're next door neighbors, but I feel like we've seen this game 5 million times, even with the personnel involved. Bam's 3-point shooting, are you really keyed in on that? I'm not, but are you?
No.
Yeah, I actually think it's not good for his fantasy value. So if he's going to go further and further away from the hoop, I think that's going to be bad for him. Always a divisive kind of topic, Bam Adebayo. I'm still seeing ringers go for that. And I think they're trying specific builds that make him a little bit more valuable, but I just cannot get behind that. I don't know what they're thinking. These are very good players, so I don't, it's a strategic move, but I just can't get behind it. Orlando, I'm kind of curious if Banchero can really go off, like just really go off. I want to see if he can cash in on some of that upside. KCP, kind of curious about the integration there. I think that's kind of low key important for those guys. And then Miami, not a lot of. I just want to see their overall kind of. I think that team has gotten motivated during this offseason, so I wanted to see kind of what that looks like in week one.
They play good D too. Miami does. So I would. My expectations for what Orlando is going to do tonight are not super high, but
yeah, it could be a slow down, grind it out kind of game. I would bet the over-under is probably not that much over 200 for that game. And I haven't started looking at that stuff at all yet.
208.5.
Oh, today's NBA. That's beautiful. We got the 4:30 ESPN game is going to have all sorts of buzz surrounding it, even though two of the big names aren't playing. That's Milwaukee at Philadelphia. We have talked a ton about Joel Embiid on this show. And maybe we tapped the brakes a little bit in the last couple of days because it felt like we just covered that so much, but he's not playing. And how does that sit with you? Like, is this a departure from, I mean, I know the answer. You don't, I guess the question, the best way to frame it, because you're never Embiider. you're just never going to go there. Do you think this means things are worse than they were 3 weeks ago?
Yes, but I also, if I'm a Philadelphia 76ers fan, I'm like, fine. I don't need to see George or Embiid in a practice. I don't need to see them in back-to-backs. I don't even need to see them for the first 2 weeks of the season, as long as they're healthy and ready to go for the playoffs. So, fantasy-wise, I think this has got disaster written all over it. But, and, I've got Andre Drummond in so many leagues. so many leagues. And I started him in 30 deep. I mean, if Andre Drummond's going to start once a week and play decent minutes every week, that's a guy that can win me 30 deep.
If your league gives bonus points for 20 games, he's gonna have 20 rebounds in a game a few times. I don't know where this lands value-wise in the grand scheme of things for Andre Drummond. And, I tried to give Drummond like the maximum bump that I could give him, like statistically, just like it makes sense, right? Like, I mean, Embiid is Embiid, and the situation is played out kind of the way that it has. More on that in a second, but like, I just couldn't get him high enough to beat everybody else. Though those numbers and those games are going to be quite good. I just wonder if he can play more than like 22 minutes per game at this stage in his career. So he's going to kind of always be capped a little bit. The thing I've been looking out for with Philly is the kind of the integrity of the reporting and the integrity of the discussion behind Nick Nurse, who's been a little bit known to talk out of both sides of his mouth a little bit. I mean, he had Paul Reed, buzzing last year in fantasy circles, and then a big thud, no Paul Reed. What's he saying about these injuries? And can you read between the lines with that? We had Keith Pompey on the show earlier in the year, and Keith was asking him questions and putting them out on Twitter. And it really did appear that this was the plan the entire time with Joel Embiid. The other thing with Paul George is all the talk around Paul George, and that was a pretty nasty looking injury. Were they going to be holding him back and doing the dance of talking like, whatever. And then it's, both sides of the mouth. Next thing you know, both of these guys are just dragged out. He was very concise about Paul George. And then the best key thing is Pompey, again, shout out Keith, had filmed Paul George sprinting back and forth on the basketball court, really hitting a high gear with his sprints, maybe coming out of the gate a little bit like 75%, but for him to be running like that on the court, that tells me he's closer, if not close, to returning, and he dodged a bullet. So Paul George falling in drafts, I'm sure that the market for Paul George is relatively soft. But as it relates to the big kahuna, Joel Embiid was still going second round in high stakes, and people just aren't going to get off it. We got a couple Joel Embiids, 2 center leagues, so it's like, hey, the threshold for success is so low for him because of the stats he produces. It's been a fascinating year for drafting, and he's at the top of the list. I think my takeaway from it all is that nothing's really changed so much, just that they don't really want to waste Joel Embiid in the month of October. You only have so many minutes that you can put him on the floor for. Why not save them for later down in the year? Like cut off the front half of the season, and then probably around All-Star break, cut off a lot of chunk there and get that guy 2-3 weeks of rest. And hopefully that turns into him being okay for the playoffs. Anything else in the Milwaukee-Philadelphia game that you'll be watching?
Giannis is game time. And if Giannis doesn't play, Bobby Portis should be in every lineup imaginable, I would think.
Damian Lillard, want to see what kind of fastball Damian Lillard's got? And as I hack up a little bit here, the illnesses, they run strong with the preschool stuff. Cleveland, Toronto. How you doing with Cleveland, Toronto?
Love me some Scotty Barnes. Excited about that.
He started falling in drafts. He started going closer to 15 than kind of the 8, 9, 10 that you started seeing him early in draft season. I wonder why that was.
Yeah, I don't know. Just his injury history, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he's going to be awesome.
Maybe some fear of the regression. Yeah, he looks great. Cleveland, I'm kind of watching for Darius Garland. I want to see how he handles the offseason now that some of the foundational pieces in Cleveland have been figured out at least a little bit. Does he feel more comfortable, and does he have a bounce back season? Because he was really good prior to the Donovan Mitchell stuff. Yeah, other than that,
RJ Barrett is out.
Yeah, that's it's a Grady Dick gets more run. Maybe Bruce Brown, see what's cooking with that knee. That could be interesting to see kind of what's going on there. But
I don't think he's playing either.
Yeah,
he's hurt.
Toronto. Here's the thing with Toronto that could really be bad is that the tank could be on like already, and that could be just super bad. I mean, when Jakob Pearl came out and said it like that, that was classic. Like, hey, we've all discussed this, but don't say it out there.
What did he say?
He just, maybe we're not playing to win. I'm paraphrasing. Somebody could cue up the quotes if they want, but like, dude, you got to at least fake it. You can't just be like, yeah, no, we're going for Cooper Flag this year. So, at any rate,
Grady Dick could have a big game tonight.
Yeah. Just seeing sort of what Emmanuel Quickly is going to do. I think Emmanuel Quickly is going to get a lot of attention to start off this season. And now what's that look like? There's always the breakout followed by, oh, now you're on the scouting report, like 5 million, lines up the page. Okay. Now you're getting the best defender on the other team. So what does that look like for him? I'm pretty excited about him, but I didn't get him in a lot of places. I think people were more excited than I was. Charlotte and Houston, unless you got anything else, Steve?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, Charlotte, Houston. That game I'm actually pretty interested in. I think we know what we're getting out of Charlotte. Like, just what the basketball is going to look like. So I don't know that I'm so intrigued with that side. I do want to see what LaMelo Ball does, and I do want to see what the market looks like for LaMelo Ball as we go. Not necessarily specific to tonight, but I want to see what it looks like as we go, because you can have a decision all year long. Is the ankle situation so bad that you just want to get off that ride? And it's going to be going well. The ride's going to be going real well. Like, he's just going to put up stat line after stat line after stat line after stat line. And the people that leaned into that are going to feel great about it. At what point in time to get off the ride?
Yeah.
I'm
excited. I'm excited about Miles Bridges just because I didn't have him anywhere last year, and I've got a bunch of Miles Bridges this year. And
that might be really boring for you, though. Like, he's just going to put up good numbers the entire time.
Okay. Yeah. But as far as the Rockets go, man, I'm a low-key Rockets fan. Like, I like the whole team. Like, I'm excited to watch them.
Yeah, I'm kind of a Rockets fan, too. I don't get that tag out there in the internet space because of the whole Shingun thing. But and it's just like the Sabonis thing here locally in Sacramento. I like watching them play offense. That's it. But that team, Ime Udoka, I think like what he's going to do to further put his stamp on that team and just sort of them coming out and being very motivated. I think they might come out and clobber Charlotte in this one. And then that's probably Amin Thompson. I think Amin Thompson's going to have a big season. And how does he navigate? Can he just jump right to the front of the line right away? That would be my preference, from a reality basketball standpoint. Get him on the floor, let him do things, and let it be at the expense of other players. And then what does that look like? How does that shift the offense around? Because one of his attributes is being able to handle the ball as a secondary ball handler. What else? Is there anything else you expect out of this game?
No,
producer-wise?
We got to keep moving.
Yep. Good call. Chicago and New Orleans up next on the docket. Zion?
You're not going to believe what I'm excited about.
What are you excited about?
Zion.
You are? Okay. Is he even playing? Do we know that yet?
I see him as a game time decision, but it looks like he's supposed to play.
Okay. All right. Prior to the recording of the show, I think he was out with possible illness. So I thought that was just like, if you took the risk on Zion, if you were a big Zion guy in the offseason and you saw that little red cross, you probably went,
Oh, he was not a shoot around.
Yeah. I don't know. And that's, like not a great omen, right? Not a great omen.
That'd be a bad way to start the year.
Got a comment
Well,
from a listener.
I was excited to watch Zion.
Christopher Scott, here we go already, Zion, not at shoot around. So glad I drafted. I mean, this is the sentiment, and I think it would be the sentiment not just in fantasy leagues, but even in inside the organization. It's like, okay, you got sick. How bad is it? What are we doing here with this?
He's sick, so it's not really just his fault.
We don't know what the level of the illness is, and players play through stuff all the time. This is one of those things. It's completely either fair or unfair. We don't know. But
so if Zion's out, who's gonna go off?
I'm actually looking at that regardless of the Zion playing or not playing question is who's going to get those backup center minutes. Daniel Tice is going to be, involved in his 15 to 20 minutes, right from the jump. But is Yves Missy going to get involved here? Karlo Matkovic had some hype during summer league and it completely fizzled out during draft season. He was sitting at the top of the Sports Ethos internal draft for a comedic 20 rounds. His pre-ranking just sat way high and people just kept passing him and he kind of became a running joke. But who would you pick if you had to stream a center from the Pels today? Say Zion doesn't play. Which one are you going to pick? Is it going to be Tice?
I'm going Missy.
That's the fun option. He looks great. I hope that he pulls it together. It's going to be a tough road for him. He looks great, just physically can move. He's got a little fluidity to his game. Can he just hit the finer points so he doesn't get, sort of put into the unplayable status by coaches where they go, I can't really give it to this guy yet because he doesn't know where to stand on the court. That stuff. Other than that, I mean, just the general vibe around this New Orleans squad, what's the Brandon Ingram situation going to look like on the floor? Is, CJ McCollum, is he going to be okay? What's DeJounte Murray going to look like? On the Chicago side, what's that 10 minutes we're going to see from Lonzo Ball look like? He looked great in his little 10, 15 minute spurts on the floor. Doc doesn't even care about that.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter from a fantasy perspective because until he can play, say, 8, I think people are actually wondering about this with Lonzo Ball. So I'll take 3 seconds on it. Until he can actually play 15 minutes in an NBA game, not worth talking about. If he can cross the 20-minute threshold once, I think we can talk about Lonzo Ball. And then we'll leave it at that.
I think it's got to be deep league for that to happen. But
deep league. Yep.
I'm super psyched about Josh Giddey and Kobe White, man.
Yeah, Kobe White was falling in drafts. Kobe White was going 90 in some drafts, and my stats didn't support the pickup, but it was like, wow, what are we doing here? Zach LaVine, is he going to have his fastball to start the season? Is he going to be good? That's going to be an interesting discussion there. Not so much the rest of the roster, at least off the top of my mind. Memphis and Utah, as we kind of come down the stretch here with 2 more games to go. I actually am very interested in this game, but what's catching your eye with Memphis, Utah?
Well, I mean, after Memphis, we didn't get to see their team last year. So this is going to be the first look we get at the real Memphis Grizzlies, the return of John Moran, the debut of Zach Edey, the return of Desmond Bane after some injury problems last year. I mean, Memphis might be the sneakiest team in the whole league.
47.5 win over under win total is the only total I refuse to have a take on because I really think they're just going to win 47.5 games. They will have that last game split in half by the league. All those things. Zach Edey was going 50, 60, 70 in some of these high stakes drafts. Not names that I'd recognized kind of from the ringer circuit, but still, I think that people are hyped on Zach Edey. I would never go that high. I don't even think I would go back into the late rounds for Zach Edey, but maybe.
I like Zach
on a flyer. Yeah, because I don't know what we don't know there. That's the big thing with Zach Edey. He could potentially just find a niche where he's absolutely good in that niche for this squad, and the blocks and the boards and the high field goal percentage and all of that could come together and be a nice package there. What about the Utah side?
Keontae George. That's all I really care about.
Yeah.
I just want all the Keontae George. And
I want
then
to see
Hendricks, I think the Walker Kessler potential bounce back and the Hendricks phenomenon. Those are also interesting storylines.
John Collins, to see kind of how he has a little bit of an off-on switch. Also, like a guy we didn't cover in the Atlanta game, Onyeka Okongwu was very similar. It's like, and also similar in that they played for Atlanta. It's like they have two gears. One is stats are not there. Other gear, stats are there. I want to see which gear John Collins has. Kessler, Walker Kessler, that is absolutely top of list for me. Keontae, this guy is fast, guys. He's fast. If he can pull it together in some way, shape, or form, I think there's something there. But he's got to pull it together, and we'll see in round one here tonight. I think that's it on my mind for Memphis, Utah. So let's take us to Phoenix and the Clippers for the nightcap game on ESPN. So Phoenix, same kind of story, just plus Tyus Jones. Are you keyed into any of that specifically?
I do. I want to see how Tyus Jones does. One of our guests last week or somewhere recently was like, Tyus Jones is done because he's never going to see the ball with Booker and Beal and Durant out there. But if he's bringing the ball up the court, Tyus Jones had a good year last year. Tyus Jones, I don't know how he's going to score points, but I am intrigued to see how he does tonight. And then, if Bradley Beal makes it through the whole game without suffering a leg injury, I'll be impressed.
Hey, I had Beal more than you had Beal last year.
I never had Beal.
Yeah, I took the bait, but I do think that the injury stuff, he had at least one bad luck one last year. So maybe just take the fantasy risk and cut it into 2/3 instead of the full unit. I think Tyus Jones can kind of trip and fall and get top 100 value. And then the Clippers side, very curious to see what James Harden looks like with it just being the James Harden show. Can he get anywhere close to what the Houston days looked like? It's all set up for him.
Well, I had the pick 5 through pick 12 in seemingly all my drafts. So I have a lot of Anthony Davis and I have a lot of Jimmy Harden. And, I make fun of Zion's pictures being photoshopped. I have not said the same thing about James Harden's photos. I hope they weren't. I hope he looks that skinny on TV tonight. I already told you guys I'm super fired up about Norman Powell. And I even have Terrence Mann. Like my 30 deep team has 4 guys starting for the Clippers: James Harden, Norm Powell, Terrence Mann, and Derrick Jones Jr. So I'm very excited about this game.
Yeah, you should be. I think Harden looks actually thinner than his Houston days. And I wonder if he made a conscious decision to go less muscle, more quickness, because he couldn't get the step on anybody anymore. But
I don't think he's looked that skinny since college.
Yeah. No, I think you're right with that. And that's very intriguing. I wonder if I wonder what the give and the take is there. And he to reach, people took him in the back end of the first round, and he also fell to the third round. So opinions varied significantly on James Harden. I could not imagine letting him. I had guys that
go to the third round.
Yeah,
that's crazy, right?
It is crazy. Yeah. Oh God, yeah, it is absolutely crazy. Third round. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I have to double check the logs there. It might have been late second, but
he's only 35 years old. It feels like he's older than that.
Yes. But if he's even remotely, like if he's good, like very good or good, it's a top 15 fantasy season, as long as they don't do something weird like pull the plug due to an injury or something weird like that. They don't have to tank. Like, he needs to reestablish his value around the league. You know, there's so many reasons for him to take this season somewhat seriously and get 72 games or more. He's got to finish. If he's good, you know, he's got to finish in the top 15. If he's great, he doesn't even have to be Houston great. If he's just great, then it would be back end of the first round where he was getting drafted a lot of times. And that's sort of the give and take here. Can he actually be good or great?
I think he's going to be. There's no Paul George. There's no Kawhi. And also get Norman Powell into your DFS lineups while you still can afford him, because his price is going to be going up. Yeah, I think Norman Powell is going to go off.
And then, the Kawhi question. Like, I don't know what additional information we're going to get on the Kawhi situation. I mean, that's like
probably none.
State secrets, DEFCON 5, whatever clearance you need to have level stuff. You basically need to know Kawhi. I think Kawhi's like family member broke some news one year.
Yeah, his uncle, I think.
It was like nobody, Woj didn't have it. Nobody had it except his uncle or cousin or whoever. And that's whatever. I mean, I saw Kawhi in drafts. I think so. I was the guy that was like, I can't let Kawhi pass at 115. I couldn't do it. Philosophically, I couldn't do it. It's like
I could have.
I will be dropping a player at that I'd pick at 115 at some point in time. Why not Kawhi Leonard? I just couldn't do it. So I have a bunch of Kawhi Leonard that was picked at 115 or thereabouts.
Wow, that's wild.
It's this year's draft. I mean, you got the Joel Embiid thing, the Kawhi Leonard thing. I think those two things sort of dominated the free fallers aspect of it. And these are guys that like finished 2 and 5 in recent years. And you know, injuries are injuries, but still just a fascinating draft that everybody kind of had to deal with all of that. Okay, to close out the show, I think we have time for a couple of questions. And then for Fantasy Pass members, if you want to head on over to Discord, you can get your questions answered over there. Mr. 101 says, who is the better streaming option, Peyton Watson or Julian Strawther in a 9-cat 16-team league? This is a very good fantasy question. Thank you very much. What you got, Steve?
I like Strawther. I like his athleticism. I like his shooting. I like the potential path to fantasy value in Denver. I like Strawther.
Look, nobody was drafting Peyton Watson because, like a lot of players, he didn't play in the preseason. So there was no hype behind Peyton Watson at all. And this is a guy who gets up there. He's going to block shots out of position. He's going to do a lot of cool things in a fantasy sense for those deeper formats. He might even compete to be that third, one of the three guys. He might be the winner at some point between he and Christian Brown and Strawther. I don't know if he can do it. His odds got steeper because these guys played in the preseason, and Christian Brown is obviously the leader in the clubhouse there, but he brings a unique, flavor to the game that the other two guys don't have. That said, Strawther might actually be better defensively than people think he is, and he's got that sweet shot. He's got the momentum. I think I would go Strawther as well. Janavan Leon, you know that I'm going to mispronounce your name. That's what I do on this show. And my apologies in advance. One of the good ones out there who's been with us for some time. Love the B150 and thoughts on Banchero in both 8 and 9 cat. Steve, I'll let you go first.
I think he's going to have a really good year. I don't have Banchero. I don't think I have him anywhere. Every time I thought about taking Banchero, he got taken right before I was going to do it. And he's not one of my guys. I hope he comes through with the blocks and the steals and the threes. But I don't know. I think he's going to have a good, solid year, but I think next year is when we're going to see Banchero just go nuts.
You know, it's funny. I was going to try to clean up the pronunciation, and I was going to go with Janavan Leon. And I don't know if that's originally what I said, but I got a great pronunciation reply. So I got it on the first time. I don't know if I got it on the second time. My thoughts on Banchero, 9 cat, it gets a little bit more dicey. He's going to have the rock a lot. He passes a lot. That 9 cat number starts to dip real quick, especially in his area of where players are competing for fantasy value. So the 9 cat, I'm not as happy about as the 8 cat, but the 8 cat, he falls into the category of players where you can't project, at least easily, you can't project the great leap without taking a great leap on your own. And you take the great leap when you just know what you're seeing and you just know, and then you take the leap. And I've done that with a bunch of players in the B150. You'll see that if you go over there, night and day difference between where I'm at and where other people are. I'll take that leap, right? I don't know if I can take that leap with Banchero because he's so highly leveraged. He's already taking a ton of shots. For him to be sort of a top 5 offensive force in the game, that's where I think he needs to be in order to cash in on fantasy value, because the name value is so high for him, and it shouldn't be. Like, if you covered the name on his jersey, he would not be being drafted where he is based on his stats alone. So we have a little bit of an uphill climb here to make that work. But, he has that what if factor. So I'm very intrigued. I didn't get him in drafts, but I'm very intrigued. I don't know how to say the name, so I'm not even going to try. I'll spell it Svgejerm, Dyson or KPJ, and
Svgejerm.
Good job, Steve.
Svgejerm. I'm Dyson Daniels all day, every day. Right,
Dyson or KPJ. Porter.
Kevin Porter Jr., for those of you.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Broadcast school is not paying off for me. I think Porter Jr. could get called upon by Los Angeles to be an offensive engine. And then I don't know if that crosses the top 150 line or the threshold for your various formats there. It makes a lot of sense that he gets called upon as an offensive engine for that squad, and probably in a limited role. And that then, if he can keep doing well in 24 minutes per game and attrition starts to set in for Los Angeles, you could be down the road be saying, oh, here's Kevin Porter Jr. on the basketball court. Everybody will rehash the off the court stuff, and that'll be what it's going to be. But that path, it does seem like it's there. And then Dyson, this is a points league. You took Dyson? Is that right, Steve?
I'm going Dyson, yeah.
That's the move. That's the move. That's the move in tonight's game. If
KPJ ends up ruining Norman Powell this season,
you're going to be mad.
Retire. Yeah, I'll retire.
And if this was a season-long question, it wasn't just a tonight's game question, I'd go Dyson as well. Just Dyson's going to play, guys. Dyson is going to play. He's a piece of that team. And the question is really just how much can he improve in the stats department, and how much scoring can he bring to the table? Can he learn the finer points of the game? He's going to play, folks. And that's going to do it for this show. We ran a little long, but, we're just trying to figure out the rhythm of calling out a 10-game night. 2 games on the slate for the opener. We'll have, I think, 2 games. Man, I haven't even looked at it. I'm not even going to try to guess for Thursday, but this is the night that it all happens, folks. You've got about a 2 to 3 week window here where people are all over the board with their valuations, their projections, their thoughts, their feelings. And everybody's emotional about their draft picks. So when you want to get in there and do damage, the damage can be done right now. You have an entire season to enjoy the damage or the lack thereof that these decisions create. So check out also Rick and Doc will be on later tonight. We're going to call this Sports Ethos After Dark. I don't know.
I like it.
Talk to the marketing department about that one.
I like it. Before we shut this down, there's a very fine line between panicking after one game and moving a guy and picking up a hot free agent that you should pick up. So, yeah, you got to jump early and when the time is right, but you also got to be careful not to drop a good player to do it. Right.
And get into our Discord, folks. If you don't have the link, send us an email to support@sportsethos.com. We'll get you into the Discord, and you guys can ask your questions there. This is very, it is razor thin. As an analyst, we get a billion questions, and it's just interesting that they are all so specific to settings and details and rosters and all of the things. So, really dig in and try to make sure that you get that part right, because there's a lot of value to be had. And that's going to do it for us here today. Thank you, Andre, for producing another great show. Thank you, Steve, for the great work as always. Thank you, listeners, for all of your support. This has been Fantasy NBA Today, a Bet Online presentation by Sports Ethos. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, be well.
See you at midnight.